All right, guys. Hey, guys. Welcome back. This is episode 3, season 2, Interrupting Sports podcast. And we're back this week. With me today, guys. I'm so grateful today to have this guest. You don't even know. You guys are going to love this episode. I can't wait to hear all you have to say about it. And with me today, I have Samir, good friend Samir. Say hi to everyone on the podcast.
Yes, sir. What's going on, everybody? Hope everyone's well. Hope everyone's staying safe and healthy, and that you're all thriving.
Amazing. Thanks for that, guys. Today, Samir comes with so much experience and interest and fandom within sports, lots to bring to the table and lots to come forward. So with that, we're just going to discuss a little bit about his background, understand his relationship with sports, understand his perspective on diversity and inclusion and what that overlap looks like in the industry. And then we'll kind of dive more into his industry experience and then some key takeaways at the end. So with that, let's turn the tables over to you, Samir, and just give us a bit of a background with the relationship that you have with sports.
Yeah, for sure. So, I kind of grew up really heavily ingrained in sports at a young age. My mom, like right off the bat, threw me into a bunch of different things and tried to see what would stick, what I'd get good at. I think just like a majority of other kids, I started off in soccer, was not good at it at all. So knew I wanted something else, but also started to develop a little bit of an interest in basketball when I was in like grade 4, grade 5. Kobe Bryant was kind of my like inspiration, if you will, and really idolized him at a young age, watching the Lakers and the Celtics go at it, and that ultimately got me into the sport. So started playing a lot more, started really investing in it, joining camps, things like that, and it was ultimately when I got cut from my team in grade 6. That's when I had the moment of like, okay, like I'm gonna take this seriously now, and it was a bit of a driving factor for me. So I joined a training camp, got involved with some of the right people and coaches, improved a lot over the year after that, then became a starter on the team for the next few years and continued to play into high school and various clubs at the OBA level as well. But yeah, I'm eternally grateful to the sport. It's given me so much. It's opened a lot of doors for me. It's developed me as a leader, as a person, taught me a lot about discipline, teamwork, and really what it takes to win, like on and off the court. So it's given me a lot. I'm super grateful to it, and really excited to see how the sport kind of continues to develop down the road, and how it's going to continue to empower the youth and really uplift communities across the world.
That's great. I absolutely loved to hear that. I think anyone who's an avid sports fan or former athlete has their little kind of story that goes with
Yeah.
them. Just how that carried them through life. So that's great to see that that had such a significant role for you. So let's talk about a little bit more of how did you go from athlete to business? How did that sort of overlap with sports and why did that happen?
Yeah, great question. It's something I ask myself too, like a lot of the time, and as I went through that transition. But yeah, ultimately my interest in sports and my involvement in sports, plus my passion for science and really learning about the human body, anatomy, physiology. I was always into that throughout high school, and ultimately that's what led me to U of T, where I did my kin degree. But yeah, I think the interest for the business side of sport really came from my initial role when I was became a member of the Raptors game operations team. That was kind of my first exposure to and really my foot in the door, if you will, of like event management, partnership activation, and operations, really. So that kind of exposed me to the behind the scenes aspect of sport and kind of allowed me to really pull back the curtain a bit. And I knew right off the bat that was my scene. That was what I love to be around. I love to contribute to the fan experience and to be involved with the game that I grew up knowing and loving. So ultimately, yeah, like a sport was always the common thread throughout all of this. And now being in a business program, transitioning from a science degree, there was definitely a lot of transferable skills there. So I found that the transition for myself and also being on the younger end of the program, I found that it wasn't as bad as I may have anticipated it to be. And I definitely came in with apprehensions, but overall, yeah, sports been the kind of common denominator with everything that I do, sports and entertainment, as I'm a big music guy as well. So I kind of always like to put the two together. But yeah, the business side has been great so far. I've learned a ton, and I feel like I've expanded my skill set a lot in the last 12 months or so. So just continuing to do that, continuing to keep my head down and grind, and just really be a sponge and soak in as much as I can with every single experience I take on, and every single person that I speak to as well.
I love that. You guys don't know, Samir's probably the hardest working guy I know. Honestly, he's
Oh, no
always
way.
doing the most, doing the
Yeah.
most. So it's so great to like I'm always captivated when I talk to you and hear what you're up to. So it's honestly so great to hear your story ever so often.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, no worries. Let's kind of shift gears a little bit. Let's kind of dive into you're talking about you go heading into sports and in fan engagement, you're also talking about promoting events, partnerships. What is your kind of personal mission working on the business side? You said you're looking to help inspire youth. Where does that sort of stem from?
Yeah, I think honestly, a lot of it stems from my own personal experience with the sport, and knowing firsthand what I was able to get out of it. And then on the flip side, having coached for around 3 years as well, like being able to then transfer that skills and that experience that you had at a young age. Now you're older, you're more experienced, and now having younger kids looking up to you and kind of wanting to be like you in a sense, and you being able to transfer these skills and these talents down to them. I think that was always a really rewarding experience for me, and just seeing a kid who on the first day of a training session can't make a layup, then go to becoming like one of the leading scorers on their team, I think is one of the most amazing experiences. And I think it really increases kids' confidences, both boys and girls at a young age. I've had the chance to work with both and have really enjoyed my time in that sense. So it's been great, and I think for me, my ultimate mission, as somebody who's still trying to, I guess, like navigate this industry and really pinpoint like where I want to plant myself and where I want to kind of blossom, if you will, is understanding a role in which I can really leverage my authenticity, my ability to build really strong and meaningful relationships, and then kind of think outside the box in terms of how we can engage fans in a new and exciting and innovative way. And we're seeing so many emerging trends in the industry, and I think that's why it's a really exciting time to be a part of this industry and to be working within it. But ultimately, being able to engage different key stakeholders and forming relationships that can then lead into partnerships, and being able to leverage those to kind of tell a brand story, develop an athlete's personal brand too, is something that has always interested me on the athlete side of things. So athlete marketing is becoming a really big branch. And even seeing now, we're kind of seeing a common trend of the athlete activist, and seeing a lot of athletes really speaking out on issues that they're really passionate about. So how do you kind of make the link between the athlete, what they're passionate about, and then brands and what brands have to offer? I think that's something that's always interested me as well. So yeah, I think those are kind of the top 3 to 4 things that I've got my eye set on, at least for the near future. But I mean, with everything changing on a daily basis, you never know like what could kind of come up next.
No, exactly. I love that you mentioned sort of crafting a story for the athlete. And I love that you kind of tailored that into a perfect segue, actually,
Awesome.
into, yeah, just talking about activism and sort of the role of an athlete. So the reason I mentioned it's a perfect segue is because the episode that would have come out by the time you guys listen to this, what's happening in there is we talked about the role of athletes and how if they have something they're passionate about, especially when it comes to activism, using their platform to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, let's say we'll talk about from a DNI lens and sort of your personal perspective, where do you think the athlete sort of lies in this cultural movement?
Yeah, heck of a question. I mean, we've seen like so many major developments. I mean, the last like year to year and a half has obviously been a really tough time for folks around the world, especially people of color, especially the Black community. There's been kind of this like, I guess, awakening within the sports and entertainment community, and there was always a handful of athletes who would, speak their mind. They would get in front of the cameras. They would say what they need to say. But I think and this is why, I mean, basketball has kind of been at the forefront of this. Both the NBA and the WNBA were leading the charge in kind of this fight for equity, diversity, and inclusion. And it's been really amazing to really watch these men and women be at the forefront of this change. And I think the athletes have such an important role to play, because these are people with fan followings that are like a cult, really. Like, these are people who, you have diehard fans, and I know because I'm one of them, and I've been there, and I've been like that with Kobe Bryant, for example, Kevin Durant, another player that I was always amazed by. But you have such a huge following. They have these social platforms. We're in a digital era where everything is a click of a button away, and these athletes are in a really powerful position. And I've always felt that, because you have so many eyes on you. Apart from you go to work every day, you play your sport, you compete, you try to win championships, you try to win the top titles within your sport. But at the end of the day, these athletes are also, they're people. And I mean, it relates to kind of like LeBron James says it all the time, more than an athlete. And what an organization like Uninterrupted is trying to accomplish, what from the media side and really telling athlete stories. These guys and girls are so much more than what they I guess, than the shoes they lace up, than the skates they put on, things like that. They're bringing so much more to the table. And I think now the world is starting to see that more than ever, and brands are starting to back these athletes, like what the meditation app Calm did with Naomi Osaka. Like, that 5 years ago was unheard of, 10 years ago was unheard of, it would never happen. But now it's just, there's a changing tide, and I think everybody is slowly starting to realize that. There's still a lot that needs to change, especially within specific sports that are still kind of dated in the way they do things. But that's why I really love basketball, is it's been one of the most progressive sports in this movement, and the athletes within the NBA and WNBA have gone above and beyond when it comes to activism and when it comes to standing for what they believe in. And their agents and their teams have done a good job of giving them the platform and the resources that they need to do those things. So I think we're only going to see it go up from here, and we're going to start to see it as more of a common thread within the other professional sports as well.
I completely agree. I think, like, definitely, you have basketball in the forefront for several reasons, but even on that kind of standpoint, I think it is exactly what you said. It's a domino effect, right? When you have those, they're symbols is what they are, right?
For
Athletes,
sure.
when you have that, they have to understand. And I think, honestly, that's personally for me, I find that's part of the problem, is those who don't realize how much influence they have. And
Absolutely.
just knowing that, like, you obviously can't force someone to use their platform to promote change. That's not something you can do, and you wouldn't want to, because I don't really think that change is going to be, if it's not authentic, it's not really going to happen. You're just putting on a performance. So
Exactly.
I think you're right when you say organizations have a role in supporting what the athletes are passionate about, rather than coming from a standpoint of organizations saying, hey, you should talk about this and you should do this because, this is what everyone's talking about right now. Because if the athlete really doesn't care about it, it's not going to be as impactful, right?
Exactly. And you hit the nail on the head when you said authenticity. That's like the key buzzword in all of this, is that if the athlete, we live in a society now that if you're not authentic, people see it and they call you out instantly. Like, we're seeing that with every single industry. You don't even have to be in sports and entertainment. If somebody makes a statement, I mean, like, for example, with the Black Lives Matter movement and what happened with George Floyd, everybody can put out a statement and say the correct, quote unquote, correct keywords that they need to put out there in a public statement. But at the end of the day, that doesn't do much. And there's people who are actually really leading the forefront. There's athletes who are in the streets during the protests, and it's people like that are going to be really the next generation of change, and are going to inspire then the youth, people like you and me, people younger than us too, and young kids who are kind of born into this world and seeing everything unfold. So yeah, it's really important to be authentic, because like you said, if the athlete doesn't really care about that specific issue, it's going to be obvious and it's going to seep through everything that they do. So they have to make sure that it's something they genuinely believe in, and that they want to invest their time and energy in really being an activist for and really promoting.
100%. And I think, like, just building on that, even understanding, like, why it's necessary. because
Yeah.
I think there's more than, oh, because I have such a following, I have to say something or have it. Like, I think it's deeper than that. I think it's just understanding role in society. And I think, especially in the sports space, and you touched on it indirectly when you said the impact that sport had on your life, you growing up and influence where you're going, right?
Yep.
Having that ability to not just influence, but to shape someone that shapes culture, right? That shapes practice, that shapes all of our norms. And if you have the ability to be a part of that, then if that's something that you have experience with, that you're passionate about, of course you should be motivated to then use your platform to do so.
100%. Like you couldn't have said it any better. And I think like that's ultimately brings me back to someone like Kobe Bryant and why his tragic demise impacted so many people and made people feel. I'm someone who's not really an emotional person by nature. That reading that and hearing about that, it was tough for me too because I obviously grew up idolizing this guy, followed his every single move, saw what he was doing in promoting women's basketball and what he stood for with his daughter and how he was investing in the next generation of athletes. And it's like you said, they're a symbol. These are powerful, powerful people that have the literally the ability at their fingertips to shape society. And I think that's why it's an exciting time for athletes. It's a daunting time as well. It's not easy to be in front of all these cameras and in front of the media, especially when the media is trying to twist everything you say, it's spin it in a certain way. So I think oftentimes the athletes don't get enough credit, but we're witnessing really a staggering movement in the industry, and I think it's like I said before, like it's only going to go up from here, and we're really going to see that this passion coming from these athletes and this desire to want to make things different is really going to come out. And I think the last thing I'll say on this is at the end of the day, like putting everything else aside, it comes down to like what's right and what's wrong. It's as simple as that. And I think unfortunately, there are people who still don't understand that when it comes to specific issues, and that's what leads to a lot of problems. But you can take all the extracurricular stuff out of it. It boils down to what's right and what's wrong, and that's what the rights that people are fighting for is about that in itself. And I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think that's something that you can really get into in too much more detail because it is what it is. It's about what's right and what's wrong, and what you're going to do to right the wrongs that have kind of been laid out over the years. So I think that's what we're really going to start to see more of.
I agree. I completely agree. I think one thing that gets lost in all of this because it's so sensitive is that it's overcomplicated when it
Hmm.
doesn't need to be. And so that's a great way to kind of end that off. So just kind of building on, you mentioned so many great things that I would love to dive into every single thing, but we obviously don't have the time here.
Yeah.
So one thing that I would love to just pick your brain a little bit more is how has let's use Kobe Bryant has been an extremely influential symbol in your life. So knowing that that's the case and his influence on you and yourself being a member of the BIPOC community, what's that relationship that is there, if there is one, and how has that influenced what you're trying to do in sports?
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, someone like Kobe Bryant or other, I guess, famous individuals or professional athletes who are part of the BIPOC community, what they're doing is they're paving the way for the next generation. And I think like we hosted an event at Ryerson last year. We had Shelby Weaver from the Toronto Raptors, and she said a quote that I'll kind of never forget. Like she said, like you can't be it if you can't see it, and that's the I guess the main, it all boils down to representation. And I know everybody throws that word around and it's become a buzzword, but it is true at the end of the day. And we're starting to see a lot of companies really change who is in their executive, who's in their C-suite. And because you can't be what you can't see. And you ultimately need to see people like yourself in these leadership positions. And now, like, the owner, myself being a member of the South Asian community, the owner of the Sacramento Kings is South Asian. We're seeing a handful of South Asian players going from college or even from India now up to the G League. Some have even played in the NBA. We've seen a coach from Ryerson University is now coaching in the NBA. It's things like that. Like little steps that are needed. And I think for me, like seeing someone like Kobe and all these other people, it really taught me that even though I learned very quickly I wasn't going to the NBA, it showed me that I had the potential and the capacity and the ability to do great things. And I think that's the thing, is that I always had this, I guess, inherent pressure on myself, but it's a good pressure in that it's you want to push yourself to really make a mark. And I think myself, just looking into the putting basketball aside and just looking at sports and entertainment, there isn't a lot of South Asians. It's not an industry that they commonly work in, and so that's a narrative that I'm also trying to change myself, and to be somewhat of a role model for people who are younger than me, and South Asians that are really trying to come up. And I mean, I've been reached out to by young South Asian professionals in the industry, and I'm always willing to, not even just South Asians, but anyone, I'm always willing to give them time. If they want 30 minutes, I'll make 30 minutes for them, and I'll find a way to help them out in whatever way I can, because I know what they're going through. I've been in their shoes. And I think that for me is one of my biggest values, is, and something that I want to do down the road, is be in a position of influence where I can then help to breed and to solidify the next generation, because they're the ones who are gonna really change the world. And so we I think have a duty and an obligation to give them what they need to do so.
And that answer right there is exactly why you're in this interview. I wanted everybody to hear what it means to be passionate about promoting change, about doing something that drives you, about doing something meaningful in the world, because
Right.
I honestly think that there has to be some sort of responsibility that we each have. It doesn't have to be activism. It could be whatever, so whatever it is to you. But
Yep.
using that as fuel to do something, make the world just a bit of a better place, even if it's only something small, it's making the difference overall. So hearing that, honestly, just it's a constant motivator coming from you. And I absolutely hope that there's the exact same message that resonates with each one of these listeners, because this guy knows what he's talking about, guys. Seriously, he's one of the most well-spoken people I know. Definitely, definitely great to have you hear that, and so grateful to have that answer.
Thank you. No, really appreciate it. And I think something I want to quickly pull on that you said about, even if it's something little, like that's the thing. Like if you, like me, for example, having a conversation with a student who just came from India and they want to get into sports and entertainment and they have no idea how to get started. To me, having that conversation, I might think nothing of it. I might think, okay, I'm giving 30 minutes to a student, I'm helping them out. But to them, it means the world, because you're getting an inside look onto maybe where they should go to get their foot in the door, who they should talk to get a volunteer experience that'll then help you get an internship and then a full-time role. Like it's little things like that. And sometimes I need to kind of check myself too and make sure that I get that, because it's difficult being someone coming from a completely new country and then entering into this ecosystem that's already hyper competitive. So I think really understanding that what these individuals are going through, and being empathetic at the end of the day. I think empathy is something that gets lost a lot in the world we're in today, but being empathetic and just really understanding what someone is going through. And you won't always know what someone is going through, and that's okay too. Like it's better to acknowledge that than to pretend like you understand, or to force yourself to understand. So I think and that's something that even I myself am always trying to get better at too, and have not perfected, and I don't think anyone has. But yeah, it's just it's super important to really understand where someone is coming from, and think about how you can, what you can do, little or big, to just help them to achieve what they want to achieve and to go where they want to go.
Exactly. No, I think you and I can both attest to that. Even though, we're young, we got ways to go, but even just the growth from 6 months to a year, how much other people have influenced those pathways, right? So
100%.
definitely agree on that. Awesome. So let's wrap this up with one key takeaway. I would love for just, what is one message you have for this next generation coming up, those who are kind of maybe in similar shoes as us, or whoever you choose to be speaking to, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I think for me, it comes down to I would just tell everyone, like, be yourself, be authentic, and build a personal brand for yourself. I think you want, at the end of the day, like, whether it's in school, whether it's in work, whether it's when you look back at the end of your life, and this is something that I want to be able to say about myself too. I want to be able to feel like I've left a bit of a legacy behind, and I think I want to influence people in a way that they know me and they know what I'm about and they know what I bring to the table. And I think like if my name comes up in conversation, it's people talking about the type of person I am and genuinely how I am with people. And I think that's something that I to this day am persistently working at. But I always tell that to young students and young professionals like myself, or even who are my age, younger. Even I've spoken to people a little bit older than me too, and tell this to them as well. Like, just build a personal brand for yourself, make yourself known for something, be a difference maker, and just be open-minded and willing to take on any and every role or opportunity or conversation that comes your way, because you're going to get something different out of every single experience and every single person you talk to. And that's something that I can confidently say is the case, especially in the last 2 years of my life, where it's been kind of a crazy time, lots of moving parts. But with everything I've done, I feel like I've furthered myself in some way. I've gotten better at something. I've nurtured a relationship, and I've learned. Most importantly, I've learned something about myself: what I like, what I don't like, what I'm passionate about, what I'm not passionate about, and those are important revelations that have to kind of come to the surface at some point in your life. So really invest in yourself early, and let kind of God and the other supernatural forces out there take care of the rest, and you'll be in a good position.
I love that. I got a lot out of that. You guys heard it best: be a difference maker, invest in yourself, and never turn down an opportunity. So those are great messaging there. It was so great having you on the podcast, Samir. Great interview. I know we're going to get tons of great feedback from this one. So hope you enjoyed being here.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ray. Really enjoyed the opportunity. Appreciate the invite to be a part of it. And yeah, I mean, Ray's been gassing me up in this, but you got to give credit right back to you. She's up and coming. So for everyone listening, I just want to say you got to watch out for Ray, because she's coming and she's coming quick. So you gotta see what she's gonna be up to in the next few years.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that so much. All right, guys, that wraps this up, and we're good to go.